You know the risks. You see the signs, closed to public, no trespassing at any time. But the stories call to you. This place calls to you. Stepping into the darkness, you consider the threatening signs. They remind you of the Wizard of Oz. I'd go back if I were you. But that's not you, is it? You have a dark curiosity and need for adventure that fuels your rebellion. You need to know if the stories are true. Is this place really cursed? Will you see the shadow figures that cause insanity? Will you hear noises, whispers, or even growls? Will you hallucinate or become disoriented and lost? Just as you spot what's left of an old building, you hear leaves crackle. Trying not to breathe, you stand completely still. Hearing nothing more, you continue to walk. Just as your heart slows to resting rate, you hear it again. This time, there's a flash, but it disappears before you can look directly at it. The hair on your arms tells you it's time to go. For most people. But you're not most people. You start filming. Of course there's nothing while the camera is on. Nobody's gonna believe you unless you get it on camera. Hoping you catch something overnight, you set up a few trail cameras on the way out. You'll come back tomorrow to get them for review. Walking out the same way you came seems easy, but you know it didn't take this long. What's already a dark forest is getting pitch black, and you didn't bring anything to camp. This is so weird. You should have made it back by now. Then you nervously remember the stories. Many go in, not all come out. Before you enter these halls, heed warning. Tonight's chilling tales are not for the faint of heart. All who enter must be prepared to explore stories of darkness, mystery, the macabre, and all of the darkest parts of humanity. If tales of true crime, the paranormal, or other creatures that go bump in the night unsettle you, turn back now. This is not the place for you. For those of you brave souls who stayed, welcome to Dark Academy. I'm Kristen, and I'll be your guide. Grab your candle and follow me to our haunted library of horror. Alright, gather around the fireplace. Before we go into our library circle, I have something exciting to tell you. I've been working on renovating this old place, making it perfect to talk about all things dark. Obviously, I started with the library because, 1, it needed the least amount of work, and 2, it's just cozy in here with the fireplace. One day, I'll tell you how I came to possess the academy, but that day is not today. Anyway, here's what I want to tell you. A while back, I found a key. No clue what it opened, because honestly, this place has way too many doors. Well, I found it. A whole secret room under the academy. In the basement. I've never had a basement before, so I was a little scared to open it. But y'all, this place is filled with folders, books, maps, and, well, you'll just have to see it for yourself. But next time. I haven't even started cataloging everything yet, but I did find some stuff I'm very excited to share with you. You know what's even weirder? It seems like it updates itself because this thing has been closed for a very long time, and some of this stuff is very recent. You think somebody goes in there and updates it? Or is it just magical? Hopefully we can find out. Anyway, this is where I'll be diving into some conspiracy theories. But don't worry, we'll be keeping one foot in reality while we dip our toe into the crazy. I'll try anyway, because some of the crazy is just plain fun. But I'm going to be calling it the Forbidden Archives. Alright, let's get to what we actually came for. Midnight Library Circle, where we meet to discuss all things horror. We always start with a horror movie which leads to the main story or stories of the day. And of course, we close things out with one small but weird story in our final Fright segment. Before we get into this movie review, there's always a chance for spoilers. If you haven't seen this movie yet or don't care about it at all, feel free to skip ahead to the actual story. This is just a short part of the episode. I mean, today's will be a little longer, but normally it's short. Before we get into it, I just want to say I think I might be coming down with something because my voice feels broken. Apologies ahead of time. So, last time we talked about Annabelle, the movie, and the real doll, along with haunted dolls Mandy and Letta. And I really enjoyed doing it, believe it or not, because y'all know I don't like dolls, but it was pretty interesting. Today we're going to talk about the 2024 movie Salem's Lot, based on Stephen King's novel of the same name. This one's going to be a little longer because it's based on a well-known book and it's so polarizing for people. So, first, let's quickly go through the very basic version of the plot. A famous writer returns to town for inspiration, meets a girl. They fall in like/love. At the same time, two foreigners move into the scary house on a hill. A young boy goes missing, then his brother goes missing, more people go missing. Some show back up floating with glowing eyes asking to be let in windows at night. Those not yet missing or floating figure out the floaters are vampires. They try multiple times to kill the main vampire. They have to fight off all the townsfolk who turn into vampires. Pretty much everybody dies. They eventually kill the vampire boss and abandon the town. So, there are a lot of people all but angry about this movie. And then there's a lot of other people who really like it, or just thought it was decent. People do not like all the changes, especially the drive-in scene, but they really don't like the pace. They say it's too quick for character development. They thought it would have been better as a series. Though I do agree that it would be better as a series. But it's not a series, it's a movie. And we're reviewing a movie. It's like asking a food critic to review a slider, but they compare it to a burger instead of the other sliders. It's not as filling, they say. Well, it's not supposed to be. There's not a single adaptation of a book that fits everything into the movie. They always have to make cuts. Even in series, they make cuts and change things. Part of this is to keep it fresh and update the story. This book was written 50 years ago, and it's a movie based on the novel, not identical to the novel. I'm curious why this movie is criticized for doing what is normal. For today's movie standards, I like the pace of the movie. If you take it as is, it's a decent horror movie. A dramatic ending and leaving the place as a ghost town works better on screen than on page to me. I also don't mind all the changes, but I'm not a Stephen King apologist. Also, all this talk about character development, there's not a lot about the characters in the book that stood out to me. I want to know about the mysterious stuff, like the mystery vampire. Why was there no time for that character development? I want personality and a backstory. In a movie, there's less time to go into the story, so it makes sense we wouldn't find out. He just shows up and starts sucking blood, making his vampire army. This makes more sense in a movie. So let's talk about that vampire army. In the book, I didn't find them scary at all. I hear people say that the book was terrifying, but I don't know. Again, maybe time period. The movie vampires weren't scary, but they were creepy, giving me the chills at least once. And that's never happened to me before with any other vampire movie. I just don't find vampires scary. Monsters are only truly scary to me if I believe slightly in my soul it could actually happen. Like when The Walking Dead first came out, I was constantly looking over my shoulder out the window just to make sure that I was still safe and there weren't zombies in my yard. I haven't found a vampire movie that does that to me yet. Now, here's the problem I have with the book and the movie vampires. What is so unbelievable to me about Salem's Lot, vampires, won't be surprising to anybody who knows me. Vampire victims becoming vampires too becomes a numbers issue. If you kill everyone you drink, you'd probably eventually run out of people, especially back in ancient times, if that's how far back vampires go. If those people reanimate, you create competition for resources every time you eat. They multiply in an exponential way. You'd run out of people to eat very fast. The human population would run out. Then what would you eat? Look, I'm not a Stephen King hater. I just think I wasn't aware of his books during the time that would have made me a true fan. It's as simple as that. But I do suggest this movie. If you're a King fan, watch with an open mind. I'm guessing you probably already watched, but either way, maybe rewatch. I think I'm going to do the same thing and give the book another try. I'll read it and report back as soon as I can. But the movie? I find it to be good. Slightly nostalgic, yet modern vampire horror movie. Feel free to comment why you agree or disagree. Obviously, there's no true story that matches Salem's Lot, exactly. And definitely nothing to do with vampires taking over a town. Not on record, anyway. But don't worry, I've got a vampire story for you in the final Fright. When picking stories for tonight, I focus on a few key themes in Salem's Lot. Missing children seems to be a common theme in Stephen King's stories. From what I understand, though, it's more to do with the loss of innocence than about missing children. There also seems to be a pattern of children being strong, rising to the occasion, overcoming fear, proving themselves despite being doubted. Maybe it represents the childlike fear we all have to face in the real world. Either way, there are unfortunately many stories of real-life missing children where there is no sense at all. I chose one in Maine since Salem's Lot is set in Maine. Robert, or Bobby Desmond, is one such missing child. I've heard some tragic missing children stories, but this one is especially heartbreaking because it seems like Bobby was simply forgotten. Thankfully, over 60 years later, someone finally cares, which might be unfair to the original investigators, but we probably will never know. Detective Borst has reopened the case in hopes he can re-examine it in today's standards. When he requested the original case file, he was told it had been closed, archived, and then destroyed. He asked around town, but no one remembered Bobby. No one even remembered the case. But it was so old with so little media coverage that it had faded completely from local memory. The only records that did remain were a few brief articles from the 1970s. The weirdest part of this whole thing was Bobby wasn't reported missing by his parents. The school alerted authorities when he did not show up for school, over a month later. Only then did the parents work with police. No one could explain why they didn't report him missing. It wasn't until Borst reached out to Bobby's 3 living siblings, a clearer picture of his disappearance began to emerge. Dawn remembers a volatile upbringing. Her father, Bobby's stepfather, he would get drunk and angry. He had high standards for his children. Some might say too high. On that night in August 1964, Chester, the father, was raging. Dawn's older sister would put her in the closet when something like this happened. She did the same thing that night. Her sister told her to stay in that closet until she heard complete silence. Dawn's pretty sure she fell asleep, but when she woke up there was complete silence, so she thought it was safe to come out. When she came out, she saw that her sister was gone. She had snuck out the window. Bobby was laying on the floor, not moving, only wearing his underwear. Dawn spotted her mom also, who looked very angry, so she went to hide under the bed. But Alice, the mother, found her and pulled her out by her feet, taking her downstairs into the basement and put her in a crate. In a basement and a crate. I bet that was so scary for a 3-year-old. Dawn woke up the next morning in her bed. She didn't even realize she fell asleep. When she saw her mom, she was sitting at the kitchen table with her purse open. The door leading outside was also open. "Look, I'm missing money." Bobby must have taken it and ran away. Even left the door open. Convenient story, offering why Bobby's not here anymore. It's so nice to have Dawn's story, but it would be so much better if they also had the case files. It's not uncommon for case files to be closed, if there's no possibility it'll ever be solved. Like, there's just not enough evidence to convict, or all parties are dead. Both parents are now dead, so that may be why. We do know that they moved away a few years after. In 1968, the new homeowners had concrete poured on the floor in the basement. The police dug it up in 1976 to look for Bobby, so obviously the parents were suspects. All they found were eyeglasses and animal bones. No sign of Bobby. With nothing more to go on, no further investigations have gone on before Detective Borst took over the case. As of right now, there is no further information on Bobby's case, so unfortunately, it's still unsolved. If he's alive, he would be 71 now. If you know anything that can help investigations, please call Kennebunk Police Department at 207-604-1319 or the Maine State Police at 207-657-3030. There's also a podcast about this case where I got a lot of my information. It's called Dark Down East. Host Kylie Lowe speaks with Dawn and Detective Borst. So go check it out. Another theme in the Salem's Lot story that always fascinates me is abandoned towns, and that Salem's Lot was abandoned when it was all over. There are many places that meet this fate for one reason or another, whether it's economic downturn or natural disasters. Both of those are natural and man-made. One of the most well-known is Pripyat, Ukraine, Chernobyl nuclear power plant disaster. The American West is dotted with ghost towns that once thrived during the gold rush, only to be left behind when the gold dried up. Then there's Centralia, Pennsylvania, where an underground mine fire has been burning for decades, releasing carbon monoxide and making the town uninhabitable. I'm more fascinated with the unnatural disasters, non-man-made. And that brings us to Dudleytown, Connecticut. You might think it's like any old town where some lived, some died, and the economy shifted and people eventually moved out. And that is part of the story, but that's not everything that happened. Why is it the most interesting stuff never makes history books? I mean, you could put in there like, oh, this is a folklore, maybe it didn't happen, but very fascinating. Legend has it that shadow creatures and other eerie entities, including hooded horsemen, haunt the Dark Entry forest. The area is so dark because of the thick forest and also because of the hills surrounding it. And these creatures are just a-holes, because they torment the town's inhabitants to the point of madness. Even the owls hoot during the day because the nights are too scary. Even today, people see these figures. They get disoriented and lost, and see hooded horsemen. A place so haunted sounds like a dream to our kind. So, what could give a place like this such a reputation? Before we get into it, the property that was once Dudleytown is now private property. Due to acts done by teenagers and young adults in the past have ruined it for the rest of us who would be completely respectful of this place. This area is off limits. You can be fined or even jailed. Please, do not bother these people. They just want their peace and quiet. They paid for shadow creatures, let them have their shadow creatures. Which, by the way, shadow creatures does not rule out vampire in my book. Dudleytown is not truly a town at all, in that it was never incorporated. There were about 27 to 30 families that moved in originally. The first known owner of any property here was Thomas Griffiths in 1741, followed by Gideon Dudley. Then his two brothers, Brazalia and Abel Dudley. I probably said that first one wrong though. Though the land was tough to farm due to the elevation and bad rocky soil, they found a way to farm it. They grew flax, wheat, and corn. Soon after that, the community grew. Politicians, judges, and professors lived there. More of Dark Entry Forest was cleared for farming and housing once the community grew. The Carter family was among Dudley's earliest settlers, but in 1959, 6 of them died from a mysterious plague, possibly cholera, contracted in nearby Cornwall. The surviving members, including 3 children, moved to the Delaware wilderness, where they were reportedly attacked by Native Americans. The children were taken. The 2 boys were assimilated, but the fate of the girl remains uncertain. She's said to have been ransomed, but her parents were dead, so who would have paid that ransom? These tragedies were only the beginning. One of the most well-documented incidents involves resident Gershon Hollister, who died at his neighbor William Tanner's house under mysterious circumstances. Some say he was murdered by Tanner, though no proof was ever found. Following Hollister's death, Tanner became obsessed with shadowy figures, lurking in the forest. The paranoia consumed him, and he was deemed insane. Abel Dudley, one of the ones that first settled, he began speaking of the creatures from losing his mind as well. After the Revolutionary War, General Herman Swift and his wife Sarah moved to Dudleytown to retire. Not long after, Sarah, while on the porch, was struck by lightning and killed. Following her death, Herman too began speaking of creatures haunting him. He too went insane. Another unsettling case involves Abigail Dudley, who was found wandering in the forest in a dangerous state. All of these tragedies, combined with natural economic decline, led to Dudleytown being completely abandoned by the early 1900s, except for one family, the Brophy family. John Patrick Brophy and his family were the only holdouts, until their livestock died. Then the mother died of tuberculosis. Then 2 sons were accused of theft and disappeared. Then To top it all off, the family home mysteriously burned down. It's said John wandered into the woods, never to be seen again. I do wonder about that because who saw that happen if he was the last holdout? This left Dudleytown a ghost town. Until Dr. William Cogswell Clark and his wife fell in love with it and bought 1,000 acres. Dark Entry Forest seemed perfect for privacy, peace, and quiet. They wanted a break from their busy lives in New York, where William was an oncologist and professor at Columbia University. They wanted to build a second home, but no builders would go into that forest. They knew all the stories. William built a home anyway. The couple spent a lot of time there. But one day, William had to return to New York for an unknown amount of time, leaving his wife there alone. When he returned, he found the front door open. Instant high alert. Then he heard a high-pitched noise he couldn't pinpoint. Like, I want to tell this man to leave now, but I know his wife is in there. So, cautiously he goes in the home. He realizes the sound is cackling. Like, I think that's worse. So, his wife was on the floor cackling. It was her, staring into space. She had gone insane the amount of time that he was away. Some sources say she died by suicide, and others say she spent her time in the institution. People also point out both occurred in New York and not Dudleytown, so suggesting this has nothing to do with Dudleytown. But she went insane in Dudleytown. So yeah, it does. So, is there a curse of Dudleytown? Maybe. Everyone going insane seeing the same weird creatures is definitely not the norm. So, if real, where did it come from? Some believe it traces back to Edmund Dudley, a tax collector executed for treason in 1510. It is said that one of the victims cursed his lineage. His son, John Dudley, later became Duke of Northumberland. His son, Lord Guilford Dudley, married Lady Jane Grey, the ill-fated 9 Days Queen. Both were executed for high treason. The idea is that the Dudley family was cursed, and by naming a town after them, the curse would speak like a vampire's plague, draining the life out of all who lived there. See what I did there? However, there is no solid evidence that any of Edmund Dudley's descendants ever settled in Connecticut. But even if there is no family curse, something strange lingers in Dudleytown. The town remained abandoned until 1930, when it became a popular haunt for thrill-seeking teenagers. A local teacher felt called to the area, so she took her husband to investigate. Straying from the path, they were separated, and she ended up in a graveyard where she saw a dark hooded horseman, who disappeared when her husband found her. Then, guess who showed up? And I did not plan this, they are literally everywhere hauntings happen. If you guessed Ed and Lorraine Warren, you're a regular here, or you just know their story. They investigated Dudley Woods, they sensed a difference, things didn't grow right, and there was a lot of silence. Demon! The Warrens put Dudleytown on the map, brought the darkly curious from all over the country. Skeptics like Michael Gannett of the Cornwall Historical Society dismissed the legend as a hoax, but the stories do persist. If you're interested in the hoax part of the story, you can go listen to The Curse of Dudleytown on the Conspiracy Theories podcast on Spotify. But that's not what we're here for. So what do you think really happened? Was there a family curse? Was the town just plagued by some unexplained insanity? Shadow figures, where did they come from? What tragedy? Or was it just a coincidence? Well, that's it for the dark and chilling tale of Robert, Bobby Desmond, the forgotten boy, and the ghost town of Dudleyville. Now it's time for our final fright, which is also a little longer than usual. So obviously this is going to be a longer episode than normal. And this is about vampires. How could I not do vampires after Salem's Lot? I always want to find a true story about an actual vampire, but I never do. Go figure. But would it ever really be on file? Mind control and all? Honestly, I don't really want to come across one, and the reality of it sounds awful. But I want vampires to be real so bad. At least a few stories that make it seem possible. I'm tired of this, let's figure out what's really going on out there. You take the magic out of life. Stop. So, There's this old vampire legend that comes out of New Orleans. Are you surprised? Me neither. So I first heard about the Casquette Girls on the originals, like the show that's a spinoff from Vampire Diaries. Then again on a ghost tour in New Orleans. I then bought this book in Boutique du Vampire called The Casquette Girls. It's a very good book. So, who are the Casquette Girls? Men in all of the French colonies, Canada, Louisiana, and the French West Indies, desired wives. When New France was settled, it was mostly men. So the king saw this as an opportunity to rid France of undesirables, or imprison women and ladies of the night. Clean the streets, you might say. But the men started complaining about these women, saying they weren't suited for marriage. And I know it's easy to complain here about the injustices of the suggestion, but something I'm good at is thinking outside of the box. Most of us here in the US, I believe, are raised to be working women. Sure, we know how to do the basics, but to truly be a homemaker is something taught from homemaker mothers or something you learn over time. It's not a natural woman instinct any more than hunting and fighting is a natural man's instinct. These skills have to be taught, and there was even more to know back then without electricity. If you've been living on the streets for most of your life, or a brothel or anything like that, I doubt you have the skills to be a housewife. Sure, you're more advanced than most in certain departments of wife duties, and you think that would be enough, because it seems like that's all men want, but if you're married, you know it's not. They get hungry too. And I'm just kidding, we know they have more needs than that. But there's a lot more to it, is all I'm saying. And please don't come at me about the one-sidedness of this conversation. It was only meant to be one thought outside the box, not any version of a justification. So the king guaranteed virginity of the next girls he sent. He went to the church charities to find girls aged 14 to 19. They came from orphanages and convents. I know that sounds super young for us now, but it wasn't back then. In 1704, the ship Le Pelican brought 23 girls in caskets. They stopped in Haiti contracting yellow fever. 2 of the girls died. The famous Pelican girls were the first to arrive, but there were more to follow. The later girls were said to be chaperoned and housed by the Ursuline nuns. These nuns went to New Orleans to found a convent. They wanted to run a hospital and educate girls. So the king arranged for the old Ursuline Convent to be designed and built. The girls were housed here until they were to be married. The rest of the legend is lore, so there are different versions of what happened, which probably means the truth is in there somewhere mixed with paranoia beliefs. One such story is the king ordered the return of the Casquette Girls due to the mistreatment by their husbands and being forced into prostitution after he spent some time hand-picking such quality women. So when the nuns went to the 3rd floor to retrieve their caskets that should have contained, it's debated, either their dowries or basically just their luggage with their stuff they need, the caskets were empty. Now, I'm a little confused by this because if the women were married off and gone into prostitution, I would think that if it was their stuff and their luggage, they would have that already. And the dowries, if they were married, they would already have used those. So I'm not real sure how this ties in, so maybe it's a different story. Anyway, this suggests 2 things to the nuns. Number 1, the girls snuck something over in their trunks, or 2, the girls themselves were not so innocent. It wasn't just the empty trunks that lended to these thoughts. It was also the people suddenly dying, bodies drained of blood, creatures spotted in the night, and strange occurrences happening around the convent. So the nuns sealed the girls, or whoever they brought, in the 3rd floor attic and sealed it shut, including the infamous dormer shutters. Nailed shut with nails blessed by priests, possibly even the Pope. The shutters serve as a focal point to those hoping to catch a glimpse of the vampires trying to make a break for it. Some even say if you see any of the shutters open at night, they're out hunting. In 1978, this is exactly what documentary ghost hunters were trying to catch when they were found dead the following morning, drained of blood. Obviously, vampires did that. There's no record of this ever happening, but again, mind control. Records could have been wiped clean, especially in the 70s. The book I mentioned before, The Casquette Girls by Alice Arden, does a really good job weaving all the facts and urban legends into a story that is so believable you may think that she somehow has first-hand knowledge. Alice, are you a vampire yourself? You can tell me, I won't tell anybody. It's also a really good inside look into what it was like after Hurricane Katrina hit the French Quarter. Speaking of Hurricane Katrina, it's believed that the storm blew a shutter off the third-floor window. So, the Pope sent someone to deal with the possible problem immediately, making sure the girls or whoever was in the caskets is locked safely in the attic. And I'm sure the residents of the French Quarter appreciate that. Thank you for joining me here at the Midnight Library at Dark Academy. I hope you enjoyed this dark and chilling tale and will come back next time for another one. Don't forget to leave a review for this episode in the comment section below. I'll try to post pictures and other content on TikTok and Instagram at Dark Academy Pod. If you'd like to review the whole show, you can do that on Apple Podcasts. You can rate it on any of the apps, and please do, it really helps shows like ours. Please don't forget to share it also. You can also email me at darkacademypod@gmail.com. You can send episodes and movie requests, personal stories about anything related. I'd love to read it. Thanks again for listening, and I'll meet you here next time. Same time, same place, for it's always midnight in the Dark Academy Library. Bye!